Good Tuesday afternoon, and thanks for joining us on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Lauren Lemanchek. This afternoon, Maple Grove nurses have voted to go on strike. Nearly 600 nurses at the Maple Grove North Memorial Hospital are impacted by this. This does not mean they're walking off the job yet. It means the nurses have authorized the ability to strike. The nurses union says they've been in contract negotiations with hospital leaders for more than a year.
We are hoping to not have to call for a strike. We are hoping that the hospital will move a little bit faster with some of the proposals that we've had on the table for months. We've been working with them for a year now, and we still have a lot left to get through. So we want to keep the nurses at the bedside. We want to retain the nurses that we do have and attract new young nurses that want to make their entire careers at Maple Grove Hospital, and we can't do that with the benefits that we currently offer.
North Memorial Health says it remains engaged in what it calls good faith negotiations and says it's committed to reaching an agreement that supports long-term financial stability while maintaining high-quality patient care and a positive working environment for nurses. A group of health unit coordinators at Park Nicollet Methodist Hospital has also voted to authorize a strike. Union leaders say more than 95% of impacted workers said yes to the strike. The vote comes after 16 bargaining sessions failed to lead to a new agreement. The union, representing 85 workers, must file a 10-day notice before a strike begins. Both sides are set for another bargaining session later today. Polls are open for voters across the Twin Cities metro to cast their ballots on multiple school referendums. In Lakeville, they'll decide whether to approve $139 million to renovate the district's 3 middle schools. Other districts like South St. Paul and Princeton Public Schools are voting on building bonds to update infrastructure and capital project levies aimed at funding technology and security. Polls close at 8 tonight. This afternoon, President Trump is on his way to China for a summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Some of the country's biggest business leaders also are going, including Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Apple CEO Tim Cook. They will join Trump. The White House says the summit will cover tariffs, Iran, and artificial intelligence. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer has the details from Beijing.
The historic summit is less about deals or breakthroughs and more about managing tensions in a U.S.-China relationship that is strained. The visit, President Trump's second to China as president, was delayed because of the Iran war, but is now going ahead despite the Iran war. At the center are the same big issues: trade, technology, and security. The U.S. is likely to focus on tariffs, while China's leader Xi Jinping will be looking to steady relations to help the economy here. The most sensitive issue remains Taiwan, where even small changes in language or tone can have major consequences for regional stability. Alongside that, restrictions on advanced technology and semiconductors continue to be a hurdle. There's also a high-powered business delegation that's coming along that includes Elon Musk, Tim Cook, and the CEOs of Boeing, BlackRock, and Visa. These are American companies looking mostly for access and influence here. There is no expectation of a major deal or reset. In fact, Chinese officials have been holding last-minute meetings in South Korea with U.S. commerce officials, a sign that the two sides are still trying to finalize the deliverables. Instead, the summit is about setting guardrails in a rivalry for the longer term to keep the relationship from getting worse. Janice Mackey-Frayer, NBC News, Beijing.
Today at the state capitol, a proposal creating a statewide office of inspector general is on Governor Walz's desk. The Senate passed it yesterday, days after the House approved it 127-5. It's the state legislature's response to widespread fraud in the state's social services programs. Once Walz signs, the first inspector general would be appointed in 2027. Operation Metro Surge is again center stage at the state capitol. The Senate approved a bill yesterday entirely along party lines, placing restrictions on ICE and federal immigration agents. But as Danny Spiewak explains, it's unlikely to become law because of opposition from Republicans in the tied House.
More than 2 months have passed since the end of Operation Metro Surge.
What we endured was one of the darkest periods in American history.
On Monday, DFL Senator Ron Latz put a legislative package on the floor to limit ICE access in schools, hospitals, and courts, require BCA involvement in federal use of force cases, and broaden the authority of Minnesotans to sue federal agents for constitutional violations.
President Trump thought he could divide Americans, deprive them of their rights, and target immigrants and people of color without a fight. He came to the wrong state.
Some Republicans agreed with elements of the bill, like involving the BCA in federal cases and expanding authority for lawsuits against federal agents.
Immigration law needs to be enforced, but how we do that enforcement really does matter.
Still, Republican Senator Michael Cruen proposed amendments to ban sanctuary policies at city and county levels and require more cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities.
We absolutely need to tone down the rhetoric and be less divisive on this issue and look for productive ways to move forward.
But DFL senators, including Senator Aaron May Quaid, blocked those GOP amendments seeking increased cooperation on immigration enforcement.
It is an attempt to couch some of the worst behavior in palatable language to pretend like what we saw in Minnesota was some sort of anomaly instead of...
Mr. President, these are disorderly words. We can see those disorderly words, and quite frankly, this is not the first time this senator has done this.
Well, the Senate will send this bill to the House, but it's unlikely Republicans will bring it to the floor. It's similar to what they did with last week's bill on gun restrictions. This afternoon, some sad news out of St. Paul, where several pets died in a house fire on Cook Avenue East. Take a look. This is video from the scene just before 4 a.m. All 3 people in the house were able to get out safely. Sadly, 1 dog and 2 cats died in the fire. Officials tell us the fire started in the bedroom, and right now it's not clear what caused the flames. But the homeowner told us she believes a lithium battery was at fault.
Don't leave batteries in your house. And it can happen in your garage. It can because I said, why can't we put some of this stuff in the garage? You can't. You can't store them in the garage because it does something to the batteries. To me, this ain't safe. If I would have had a baby in that room, or, I mean, it almost blocked, the fire was so big, it almost blocked the door for me, for my son to get out.
Right now, the Red Cross is assisting the family with shelter after half of the house was left completely uninhabitable. New video this afternoon from Sauk Centre Police, after a fire broke out late last night on Main Street. It was first noticed by an officer who immediately began evacuating the building. 5 apartments and 3 businesses were significantly damaged, but officers say no one was hurt. It is still unclear what started the fire. New this afternoon, the operator and a key employee of the ship that crashed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge are now being charged. That crash led to the deaths of 6 construction workers. FBI investigators focused on if the crew knew about critical issues before leaving port. A new bridge in the area is expected to cost around $5 billion and is expected to open in 2030. Right now, health officials confirm 11 total cases of the deadly Hantavirus, and they say that number could go up. The American passengers that were aboard the Hantavirus-stricken cruise ship are now in quarantine in the U.S., including one person who is showing symptoms and one individual who is described as mildly positive. NBC's Maggie Vespa has the latest from Omaha, Nebraska.
Hey there, the global hantavirus case count rising overnight, according to the WHO, to now 11, with NBC News confirming the latest case coming out of Spain. The health ministry there saying the patient presented with what they describe as a low-grade fever, mild symptoms, that they're currently stable, and they add they have 13 other patients in isolation, all of whom are testing negative. Again, globally right now, 11 cases, 3 deaths so far. Now, stateside, we have 18 passengers isolating, 2 of them at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta, one of whom is showing symptoms, but both are testing negative at this point. The remaining 16 are here at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, including one person who health officials describe as mildly positive. One of those who's testing negative here in Omaha spoke to Today from his quarantine room about what it was like on that ship.
It was definitely a wave of emotions as we retrieved information. It wasn't really until we arrived in the Canary Islands and I was able to get off this ship that I felt a bit of relief.
Now, health officials, we've also learned, are also monitoring possible exposures in close to a dozen states, including California, Texas, and New York. These are either in passengers who left the cruise earlier or people who came into contact with passengers while they were traveling home. Back to you.
Turning to the Wild now, on the brink of elimination from the Stanley Cup playoffs after a tough loss at home last night. Let's get into what happened. By the end of the second period, the Wild and the Colorado Avalanche were tied 1-1. The Wild got one more in, but the Avs managed to pull away at the end, winning this one 5-2. Colorado now just needs one more win to advance to the final. The two teams face off again tomorrow in Denver. Puck drop is at 7. Then in another must-win on the ice, the Minnesota Frost will take on Montreal in Game 5 of the Walter Cup semifinals tonight. They were supposed to play yesterday, but the game was postponed due to illness and player safety concerns. It's rescheduled for tonight at 6 in Montreal. And on the hardwood, the Wolves take on the Spurs for Game 5 of their semifinal series in San Antonio. We do know this morning that Spurs star Victor Wembanyama will not play tonight after he was ejected from Game 4 following that brutal elbow to the chin on Naz Reid. The Wolves won that last match, tying the series 2-2. They look to take the lead tonight when the game tips off at 7, Game 5. You can catch all the action right here on Kare 11. Our Julia Daniels will be live from San Antonio with coverage throughout the evening, and make sure to tune in before the game for a Wolves Extra at 6:30. Stick with us. More news and weather's coming up after the break.